Okay, so although I just said I would get straight into teaching you parts, we do need to know how to navigate around the software. So I do need to teach some basic commands in terms of navigation and how you move around the software. Okay. So the problem I have with teaching CAD is people tend to come at it with all sorts of different versions of the software. So Autodesk Inventor Professional 2020 is what I'm using here. That's the latest full version of the software. If you have Inventor LT, then you're not going to have all of the commands that I use in this course. If you have Inventor 2015 or something, again, you might not have all the functionality. The way Inventor's bought now, you pay on subscription, so if you're paying for the software, there's no reason why you shouldn't have the latest. You do get the latest if you're on the subscription, so I suggest if you're paying that subscription to Autodesk and you haven't got 2020, go to the Autodesk website and download the latest one, because you're paying to have the latest one. So the only way I can really teach the software is by starting with a freshly installed 2020 full version of Inventor. And my software here, it is freshly installed pretty much. I have got some projects and drawings I've set up for this course, but this is basically what you would see when you first install Inventor and fire it up. Okay, so obviously you have your mouse here, and this is the screen that will come up when you first open the software, and you can see we have new part, assembly, drawing and presentation. Okay, so in Inventor we have different type of files. If you're coming from an AutoCAD background or something like that, you generally use a drawing file in AutoCAD. When you save it, unless you tell it otherwise, it saves it as a DWG file, and that's the file AutoCAD uses. With Inventor it's slightly different. You have different types of files. So you have part files, assembly files, drawing files and presentation files. Okay. Now if we open up our engine again, this here is an assembly file. The reason is it's a collection of different parts that have gone ahead to make this. Okay, so to create this assembly file, open this, and you don't need to try and follow along here. I'm just trying to give you an overview, so it's best if you just watch rather than try and follow along. So this is an assembly file. These are assemblies too, so these would be sub-assemblies, and we can open those, and that's also an assembly file. An assembly file means it's a collection of parts, and we can see here there's 1, 2, 3, 4 parts. Okay, if we open this, there we go. Now this is a part file. Okay, and this is just a single object. You cannot bring another object in to create an assembly because it's just a part file. If we look up here, it's called piston.ipt. Okay, so IPT is a part file. If we go back to this piston, this is called piston.iam. So IAM is an assembly file. The engine is an assembly file, IAM. Okay, so you can have as many part files as you want inside an assembly, and you can have as many sub-assemblies inside larger assemblies. Okay, now why do we do it like this? It might sound a bit confusing at first. Well, take this engine for example. These pistons are all the same. If you wanted to change, I don't know, change the length of this rod here, you would only want to do it once, which you would do in this assembly. If you change the length of that and you saved it, all these forward update because they are the same item. Over here on the left we have this box here, this assembly and modeling box, and it shows you everything in your file in text form. Okay, so if I open this, this is our cylinder and it's .ipt, so it's a part file. This is our cylinder part file. Okay, we brought that into the assembly and we can see it says here cylinder. Don't worry about any symbols like this on the side, we'll go through those later, but you can see we have a list of things in our file. We have a cylinder and we have piston 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this is the same assembly. Okay, it's a piston assembly, which is this. And if I'll just minimize these, we can also see in our piston assembly we have 4 part files. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's these. If it's a blue box like this, blue cubes, it means it's a part file. If it's a collection of cubes, it's an assembly file. Okay, so believe me, it probably sounds a lot more complicated than it is. The main thing to remember is an assembly such as this is a collection of parts. And one good way of comparing it is imagine something you've built out of Lego. If you build a car out of Lego, the car is the assembly. The Lego bricks are the parts. Okay, and if this was a Lego brick, you might have certain Lego bricks that you use over and over again. It's the same Lego brick, and this is the same part that we've used multiple times in an assembly. Okay, your wheels on your Lego car, that's an assembly in itself, but then you might have 8 sets of those. So that's like these pistons, these are sub-assemblies within an assembly. Okay, so let me close these down, and if we go back to here, hopefully this now makes a bit more sense, because you can start a new part file or a new assembly file. Generally on a new project you would make your parts first and then you would fit them together, but it might be you've already got your parts, so you create a new assembly file. But for purposes of our course, we'll create some parts first and then we'll move on to assemblies. Now if you have something in 3D like our engine, it's no good to send really to a manufacturer. You need a fabrication drawing for a manufacturer. You need dimensions, something you can work from, and that's where drawings come in. And these will be more familiar to someone coming from a AutoCAD background. If I open this, this is a very, very basic example of a drawing. This here is our piston rod. Okay, and you can see I have a folder here, and the piston rod part file is this. So I created this part in my part file, and most of what you see here was done automatically. This is kind of a window looking through to our part file automatically. But a drawing file is something you can put dimensions on, text, you can put it onto a title block, that kind of thing. And this is what you would print out and give to a fabricator. Okay, and that's your drawing file. Now, presentation files, these will be something like an exploded view. So you could take your engine model and you could pull it apart to give some exploded view without worrying about, I've just pulled apart my engine file and I've ruined my assembly file. You can actually do that as a presentation. So you can pull things apart and move things just for clarity and to show people without actually doing any changes to your main assembly file. And we'll look at those later as well.